In this tutorial, we're going to build a 360-degree spiral staircase in ProBuilder that looks something like this. And at the end of the video, we're going to give away a copy of ProBuilder from the giveaway from the last video. So stay tuned for that, but let's get right into this. In the previous tutorials, we've built these rooms, and then we built the arched doorway, and now we got the spiral staircase. Now, ProBuilder has stairs, so as one of the shapes. Now, the stair, you can configure all the options, how high it is, how many steps it has, how wide it is, and curvature. So you can see, you can set the curvature. And so we're going to have this all the way up to 360 degrees. Now, in these levels, we're building in blocks of 2.5. So I want this to be a height that's an increment of 2.5. This room here is 2.5 here, 2.5 here, and 2.5 here, for a total of 7.5. So I'm going to put the stair height to 7.5, and there it is. Yeah, I just couldn't see that last step. So yeah, it's as high as the roof is. And now I can set the inner radius, the width, and the number of steps. So first of all, for the number of steps, I'll start at the top. I want there to be an even amount of steps so that the steps go perfectly from the bottom right to the top. And I know that the height is 7.5. So I'm going to want a number of steps at some increment of 7.5. 7.5 times 1 is just 7.5. That's not a whole number. So 7.5 times 2 is 15. And so 15 would be an okay number of steps. That would go directly from the top to the bottom. And that's way too big of steps. So I'm going to do 7.5 times 3. And of course we get 22.5, which is not an even number. So 7.5 times 4, and we got 30. So of course 30 steps here. Now, you might want even smaller steps, but in this tutorial, there's a little bit of work for each step that you have. So just to make the tutorial faster, I'm going to stick with a small number as I can. So I think 30 is a good number. Now, I want this 360-degree spiral staircase to fit in this area, which is 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. So this has a radius of 2.5. So the entire radius of the stairs is going to have to be 2.5. Now I can set the inner radius. So now the inner radius would fit onto those 4 blocks, but that doesn't cover the outer radius. The outer radius is the stair width. So right now it's total radius of stair width plus inner radius, which is 4.5. I need to get that 4.5 number down to 2.5. So I'm going to reduce the stair size just a little bit. I'm going to say 1.75 for the stair width. And then to get 1.75 to 2.5, we could just subtract it, and we know that it's 0.75. So the inner radius of this is going to be 0.75. And again, the reason why is because stair width plus inner radius is equal to 2.5. That's the size of this square down here. So now that I have that set correctly, this should fit right into place. Now I got my Pro Grids turned on, so it should snap right into place. Okay, it looks good. Now, let's finish up the rest of the options. We got the curvature set, build sides. So build sides is going to do what it says there. It's going to build the sides. And normally that's a pretty good option, but in this case, we're going to turn it off. There's a mirror option, which just mirrors it. And we set the width already. We got the height and the inner radius, so we're ready to build the stair. And that should go exactly from the bottom of the floor right to the top of the roof. And I can double check by moving it over here. And yes, it goes right to the top. Okay, so we got the staircase. We need to finish building because there's lots of faces that we can see through. So the first thing I'm going to do is duplicate the staircase, and I'm going to move it down a little bit. Now I got Pro Grids on, so it's snapped down 1, and it's set to 0.25 on a grid snap. But going from here on out, I'm going to turn off Pro Grids because with the spiral staircase, the vertices that we're working with aren't going to snap to the grid. So right here, what I'm going to do is select the duplicated staircase, and I'm going to go to Flip Object Normals. Now that flips the normals on the entire object. If you want to flip normals on just a specific face, you can select the face and flip object normals for the face. But in this case, we want to flip all the normals on the staircase. And this would work out, but you could see that if this is the staircase, there's actually this area here between the steps where there's two steps would come together so perfectly. And I think that's a little unrealistic. So I want to give it some depth. So I'm going to select the lower part of the staircase, our duplicated one that we flipped the face on, and I'm going to bring it down one more size of that stairs, which happens to be 2.5. And just to double check, I could say 2.5 or 0.25, and we have 30 steps, and there it is, 7.5. That's the height. So we know the step height is 0.25. So I'm going to have it here, and now I need to connect the side of the stairs or build the side of the stairs. Now there's a few faces down here at the bottom that can be deleted. They're not they're underground here, so I'm just going to backspace to delete those faces. And now I'm going to select both stairs. I'm going to merge these two objects together. So I'm just working with one object now. And I'm going to go to line selection mode. And I'm going to select this edge and hold shift while I select the vertical and drag down. Now because I got Pro Grids on, these vertices are going to snap to the grid, which is going to mess up the staircase as we see here. And it's going to get a lot worse as we go because we're going to have these other steps are curved. So I'm going to turn Pro Grids off. We really don't need Pro Grids for this entire tutorial. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z back to here, and now that Pro Grids is turned off, I'm going to extrude down. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to extrude down, and we need to get pretty exact because what we're going to do is we're going to merge the vertices together, weld the vertices together when we're done. So if I go to vertex mode, we got and I select a couple of vertices, we got weld vertices, and so the weld vertice options, if I hold Alt and click on it, the weld distance is set to 0.001. So we need to get the vertices that close, or we need to modify this weld setting so that it merges. I'm going to just try to get it that close. And so I can see here that the line is pretty much directly on the ground. That should be good enough. And so I'm going to select the next line and hold shift, extrude down, and get it so that it's directly connected to the previous one. at least very close, so that a weld is going to weld that vertice together when we get done. Now, in this case, we're going to end up building a pillar or a spiral, a column in the middle. So we don't want to have faces on the inside. But if you're building a staircase where you actually want to have faces on the inside and not use a column in the middle, then what you can do is select this edge and come over here and select this edge at the same time and extrude from there down. And the reason why is because you're going to get both faces done at the same time. And so select those two faces, and it doesn't matter which side you're on now, you can extrude down from either side. And just make sure you get really close right there. Now, in this case, like I said, we're going to build a column down the middle. So I don't want to have these faces here. I'm going to go ahead and delete those with backspace and continue selecting with the edge on this edge of the step and extruding down, with shift, and then making sure that it's really close down here. And to get this thing UV'd correctly, we're gonna need to have this face split in half. So there's a couple ways you can do that. You can extrude twice, or you could go to face selection mode after you've extruded and select this face and go to insert edge loop, which is Alt U, and you see it puts a split right there. You're going to need that to get the UV done nicely. And it's also kind of nicer because then you don't have this line here with this line coming in. All the vertices can be welded together nicely for a good model. So if you've extruded all the way down, make sure you insert edge loop there. And the better way to do this, that might be a little bit faster, is to select the edge and first extrude to this point, and after that extrude to that point. So I'm going to get all the steps finished up here by extruding once. So the vertices here could be welded. It needs to be really close, and extruding again to here. So the vertices here can be welded together. Okay, so I finished extruding down on the side of each step twice, and there's a few parts of this that are a little bit time consuming, but this is, for me, this is the best method I've found for getting the 360 staircase done. So here in the middle, we either could have extruded down both edges at the same time while we were going up, or we could put a column down the middle. Now, before I do that, let me just weld these vertices. I'm going to select vertice mode, select all the vertices, and I'm going to hold down Alt to get the weld options. And I'm just going to increase that distance to 0.02 because I got pretty close, but just to make sure, I'm going to increase it a little bit. Weld vertices. Okay, I got them. So now if I were to select one of the vertices here and drag it out, it should drag out all the steps, not just one of the faces. So without thoroughly inspecting the model, it looks like all the vertices were welded, so we are good to go. That also allows us to do UV auto stitching. So to get the column done in the middle, we're going to create a new object, and we're going to go to cylinder. Now, it just so happens that we built a cylinder already. We built a hollow cylinder It's right there. You can see it right in the middle. So we built a cylinder here, and it has a number of segments, which is the number of steps. So I know that we made 30 steps. So if I do the number of sides to 30 here, and its radius match the radius of the inside of the staircase, so that would be the inner radius. Now the inner radius, I believe, was 0.4, and we could check that just to make sure. If we look at the top, you know, put the camera up here, I'm gonna move like this and then click my mouse right on this Y so that it puts me directly looking down, and I'm gonna click the cube in the middle so I get so it takes away the perspective, and I get a perfect match for the size, and I can tell that 0.5 is too small, and that's right, because we had used an inner radius of 0.75. And so if I have this view on the camera, you should see a perfect fit for that cylinder. And so I already know that it is, because the size is 0.75, and we set the inner radius of the stairs to 0.75 as well. So I'm going to click the box again to get perspective back. I know that cylinder is the right radius, and it has the right number of sides. It needs a height of 7.5, so it's the same height as the staircase. And number of segments is how many segments are going down this way. Now, because my world is built in segments of 2.5, normally we could just use, you know, 1 segment or 0 segments, so that we get one face all the way down. But because we're building for vertex lit and we need to calculate lighting on the vertices, we're going to keep everything at a world unit of 2.5, which means this needs 3 segments, just like the wall is here. 1, 2, 3. So we need not 1, which gives us 1 slice down the middle, but 2 segments, because you'll notice that now that matches up perfectly with the wall, where you got 1 here, 2, and 3. So we have all of the settings correct. I'm going to select build cylinder, and now we just need to move it right here into the middle. I'm going to turn the grid snap on for a moment, although I don't believe it will snap into the correct position. If I look at the top view with like this, I should get a perfect, and actually it looks like the grid snap is going to work, so that's really good. Without grid snap, that's okay, because we can weld the vertices together, and it's gonna be in the perfect spot. Anyways, but here we can see that using ProGrids, it snapped right into place, and it looks funny. So I'm gonna click this cube. There we go. Get perspective back. So now we have the column in the center, and of course that's why we don't need those faces, but it might not line up perfectly with the stairs. So let's look at a step, and in this case it looks like it does. If it didn't line up perfectly, we could select this and go into rotate, and we could rotate it until it lined up just with the stairs here. And then when we get done, we'll weld the vertices and it's right in place. But in this case, I'm just going to undo because it was already in the perfect spot. So now I'm going to select these 2 objects, and I'm going to merge the objects together so that they're one object. Go into the vertice selection mode, select all the vertices, and we're going to weld again. So that welded not very many, because there's not very many spots where where these stairs line up with the column, but there are going to be some spots, for example right here. So we got the column in, we got the stairs in. There's a few little things to fix up here, but we are basically ready to UV map this. If I go to edge selection, I got the wrong object selected. Get that turned off for the moment. Let me go into edge selection mode on the staircase. And I'm going to select this edge right here. And it looks like we need to extrude down. Get that into place. And that doesn't line up very well, so I'm going to make sure it matches like that. So that face is taken care of, and I think that should be pretty much good for the faces. In the end, I believe I'm going to delete the faces at the top of this spiral, but I'll leave them there for now. Now the staircase is done being built. Let's UV map it. I'm going to open up the UV mapper, and let's get this object selected. And we can see it's just a big old mess right now. It looks pretty good on here, but we're going to want to change the scale of this UV map, because in the previous tutorials we'll talk about how this 512 by 512 texture right here needs to be scaled to 0.4 on our UV map, so that the textile density or the pixel density throughout the entire game is the same. So first of all, let me get a texture on here. I've picked a texture out already, and this one looks pretty good. So I'm just going to make sure I'm in object mode and drag that texture on. And I'm going to start from this face right here at the bottom. Now, first of all, it's such a mess I can't see, so there's just lines all over the place. So I'm going to select this and convert to auto, convert to manual, and let's do a box projection, just so that there's some order and not so many lines down here in the way when I'm trying to look. So let me select this face, and let's start here. I press F to focus on it, because if I don't know where it is, I can press F. Okay, and here it is. I'm going to move the face right up here. I want to get it right on the texture where I'm working, and I want to rotate it. So I'm going to press E for rotate. I'm going to hold Control because I want perfect rotation, so perfect 90 degree. Now I'm going to move it into place, and here I could say, there we go, so we could see what it looks like. Now I can see the sun is shining on the wrong side because this is a hand painted texture. Looks like the sun's coming in from this way. So the texture should get flipped. In this case, it needs to be flipped horizontally. Alright, that looks better. So let's select that face again, and I'm going to convert to auto because the rest of the world is at a 0.4 scale, and somewhere here it got rotated. So I'm going to Control Z back. I don't want it to rotate. I'm going to select all the faces and say convert to auto. And for some reason that's rotating my texture right here. Just to prevent that real quick, I'm going to use Control and click on this face to auto stitch. And I hope that I'm going to select all the faces, convert to auto. It rotated this one. It's because it's, I guess it's because it's slanted geometry. And I'm just going to get that back by using auto stitch back this way and press F to focus. I should have this pretty much right back to where we were. And I convert to auto. Okay, this time it's not rotating for me, so I'm going to do a tiling of 0.4, 0.4. And so we're going to start there. It might change just a little bit because if we look at this texture, and I'm going to click away for a second from the model so we can see, the texture is broken down right here at this scale. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 grids, and each grid is basically lines up to one of the bricks. So we're gonna need to make sure the UV map is exactly this one of these grid sizes, so that as we're going up the steps, we know that it's maintaining the correct size. So I'm gonna select this face. And it's kind of hard to see down here, but if I bring it down to 0, 0, 0, and I'm going to zoom in quite a ways here. I want to line up perfectly with this line here and this line here at 0, 0, 0. So I'm in scale mode by pressing R, and I'm going to click on the middle to drag. I don't want to click this one or this one because that's going to distort the texture. We want to maintain a correct aspect ratio, and it needs to be so it fits right on this line. There's a gray line here and this line right here. It looks like it's really close. If I zoom in even further, it's not 100% perfect, but it's going to have to work. And now I'm going to line up the UV at the bottom. And it's going to look funny because we need to get the bottom edge right at the bottom of one of these bricks. So if I get my windows lined up just right, I can get kind of see what looks best there in the window. Okay, so I'm going to start there, except I want this edge to be right. I want the edge of the brick to be right over here. So I'm going to click this button, which lets me use the transform here. And put it just like that. Okay, so I got the very first starting point ready to go. Quite a bit of work to get there, but once we've got that done, the rest of it isn't so hard. I'm going to select that face and hold down Control to auto stitch, and I'm just going to auto stitch my way up like this. Now it's starting to get a little bit off because the UV didn't fit perfectly. So I'm going to select these two faces, and because I got the UV editor open, I can't use Control, so I'm going to hold down Shift. And then I'm going to find those in the editor, or in the UV window here by pressing F. And I want to slide them just a little bit like this, so I kind of get them back on, so they're lined back up here. Now I need to open the UV editor window and keep auto stitching by holding Control. Okay, so we got the steps done going up the side. We're also going to need to stitch this way. And it looks like we actually can't do that yet. We may need to make sure that the vertices up here got welded together. And sure enough, we forgot to weld up there. It welded 3 vertices together, so now I should be able to auto stitch. There we go. Okay, and then for the top of the stairs, it's kind of tricky because you need to, you can only really use auto stitch if you're using a texture like this. You can really only auto stitch between 90-degree angles. And so going up the stairs, there's a bunch of angles here that are not 90 degrees, so you can't auto stitch between any angle that's not 90 degrees. So to get the steps done, we can stitch around this corner because this is a 90-degree edge right here, so we can stitch like this, and from here to up here is a 90-degree turn, so we can stitch that way. But this one, you can see this angle is not, you know, a 90-degree angle. It's compared to the in world space. So if we auto stitch this way, we get this messed up texture. So now, right now, it's not perfect because with this texture, it kind of cuts off this way. But there's really, you know, no way around that unless we stretch the texture really badly. So we're gonna just say that's okay, but we need to stitch the texture only around 90 degrees, which means select this face, stitch this way, this way. So I'm gonna keep going up the stairs. Okay, so all the steps are done on the top. And then on the bottom, we need to stitch the same way. We can only stitch around a 90-degree corner, so we got to select here, stitch here, and here. So again, it's select that edge, stitch there, and up. So I'm going to go all the way up the stairs one more time. Okay, so the stairs should be completely done. We've got the top, the sides, and the bottom of them done. The faces at the bottom of the pillar can be deleted. And we're going to go ahead and get the pillar UV mapped quickly. I should be able to click the gross selection here. And there we go, delete those faces. Okay, so the this one we need to make match the same scale as this one. We can't auto stitch over because the vertices don't line up, but and there may be a seam here because I'm not sure that this wrapping all the way around is gonna perfectly come back to a 512 by 512 texture spot. So because there's going to be a seam, I'm going to pick a spot that's the least visible, maybe under the staircase over here to start from. And let's look at where this is at on the UV map. We can see our stairs now. Our UV map is starting to look a little better. It looks like a cannon, actually. If you look sideways right now, it looks like a cannon. Okay, so we find this face somewhere. Here it is. It needs to be a tiling of 0.4, 0.4, and it would go somewhere like here. But we could see that I want the bricks to be the other way, so I'm going to press E, hold Control, rotate 90 degrees, and click Convert to Manual and Fit UVs. Now it looks like I have the same problem as before where the texture is upside down. This hand-painted texture looks like the sun is coming in from the bottom. So I'm going to select that face, and do a flip. Let's see. It looks like we need to do a flip vertical. Nope, it's horizontal. There we go. Got it the right way. And then I want to line up the brick to the bottom. I'm going to click this button right here so I can adjust the UV with the transform. And that seam is going to be a little bit more. Right about there. Okay, and the seam is going to be at the edge of the texture here, so it looks like it's in the right spot. I'm ready to auto stitch. And this face, I believe, is flipped horizontal, so I'm going to go back to it and click flip horizontal and stitch again. There we go. Because it was like mirroring the texture. And if I'm not mistaken, it looks like all these need to be flipped. Let me see. I can't see because I have this selected. I can't see what face is selected. So I'm going to click these and I'm going to click flip vertical. Yeah, it looks like this is the darker edge. That's the lighter edge. So we did have the we need to have that lighter edge of the brick on the top. Let me click flip. It is okay. It's flip horizontal. We got it done right. There we go. I want these the highlight, the sun shining up here and the shadows down here. So that finally looks right. Let me make sure when I auto stitch it's going to keep that. It did. It just flips. We're mirroring again. So I'm going to select all these and I'm going to do a flip vertical. And if I'm not mistaken, everything should be lined up. I'm going to slide this face to be this is where the seam is going to be at. And I'm going to auto stitch again. We should have everything looking correct. Okay, so I auto stitched around and there is the seam. Now, the reason why there's that seam there is if we look at these two faces, they don't line up. One of them's down there and one of them's up there, but the edge would need to be the same. So this edge right here needs to match the edge that's right here. So that edge needs to match that edge. We could fix this by trying to slide the texture over to a spot where it kind of fits in, but it's not that big of a deal here because it's just it's a minor seam, and hopefully up above it's not so visible. So I think that looks pretty good. We're gonna keep going from the bottom, auto stitch to the top, and now we have to auto stitch all the way around again. And here I can see that the seam is pretty much gone. I can't. It's somewhere in there, but I can't even really find it. So looking good. We got a stitch. Because we have 3 segments here, we need to stitch one more time up. So I'm going to select from the bottom, stitch up, and all the way around. Okay, so the entire staircase is UV mapped and it looks good. Up at the top, I didn't map up here yet, but we could auto stitch and map it. However, I believe I'm going to be deleting these faces, so I'm not going to worry about it just yet. So because the staircase is finished, I might want to hold control to rotate it and rotate it like this. So when you walk in the doorway here, you're walking into the staircase. I got the room to turn on. And one thing I really should do is select this staircase, go to vertice mode, select all the vertices, make sure that this hidden element selection is turned on so that you get all the vertices, and then weld them together to make sure that you got all the welds done. Now, there's going to need to be a floor, so I'm just going to duplicate this floor up here, turn the Pro Grids back on, and so I'm going to rotate it like this. There we go. And so yeah, I definitely could see that I probably need to delete the top of the cylinder faces. I'm going to select the floor and delete that face and that face so the player could actually get up the stairs. And even this one, it may have to be deleted to have enough room for the player to fit right here. I'm going to select the face on the top of the cylinder and click Grow Selection. And it's got the top of the stair, so I'm going to deselect that and delete all those faces with backspace. Now, what I'll do here is put a wall here so that you can't see the top of that cylinder. So without going into building more rooms, the staircase itself is done. I'm going to click play and make sure that it works and that the player could actually walk up it. If not, we're using a character controller, so we should be able to adjust the step height. So we can go under the stairs. My head goes through a little bit. I need to put a little colliders in there. And I can walk up the stairs, and I'm upstairs. Perfect. And I could go back downstairs. So here I'm running into I've got caught on something. I think it's the wall over here. I need to put walls around. But that's easy enough to do, and that's covered in the previous tutorials. So let's do one last thing to the staircase. If you didn't want to have the bricks being cut off effect here, what we could do is select the face of all the stairs and change it to a generic texture like this that doesn't have any seams on it. So I'm going to select all the stairs. Okay, so I got the top of all the stairs selected, and I want to put a new material on these. I found the easiest way to do this is just go to the detach faces, and that's going to make a brand new object for these faces. Now I'm going to go to object selection mode, and with that object selected, I'm going to pick a new material. I have one here. Let's see, the dark one probably looks good, so I'm going to put the dark material on the steps. And so that looks pretty good because now there's no seam being cut off on the step. And so I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom, because when you look down at the bottom of the staircase, it looks kind of funny there. So I'm just going to select the bottom face of the stairs. Okay, so all the bottom faces of the stairs are still selected. I'm going to detach those faces and then put my material on that doesn't have seams. So then I can take a look at the bottom of the stairs, and it may or may not look better. It's just a personal preference at this point. So now that there's 3 different objects, there's the top of the stairs, the bottom of the stairs, and the stairs itself, I'm going to select those 3 objects, merge them back together so they're one model again, and now I need to go to vertice selection mode, select all those vertices, and merge them back together because 232 vertices got welded together. Now we're back to just one object, and if we look at this object, which we would say 360 staircase, you'll see that there's the 2 materials down here for it, and I have the mobile vertex lit shader being used. Okay, so the staircase is complete, and just turn off this other stuff to inspect it, but I think it looks really good. Hope the tutorial helps you out. Okay, so in the last video we announced a giveaway for ProBuilder, so let's pick a winner. The criteria was just to put in a screenshot into the comments of something that you're working on. And so we got 15 screenshots in here. I've put the username of each one of you guys into here. You can find your username right in here. And so what I've done is created a new string with a new script with a public string, a public array of strings called VR devs. And I've put each one of your usernames into a string. So I figure we will just use the Unity to pick a winner. So Unity has the random API here, and so it has a random.range function with a float minimum, float max, or a integer minimum, integer max. So let's just use random.range from Unity to pick a winner out of this array for us. Okay, so just to make sure it's going to be fair, what I've done is I did integer winner equals random.range 0 to 15, and I'm logging that in update. So you can see all the numbers are updating because it's logging each one of those numbers. So as long as everything's working right, we should have a 0 listed in here. There it is. And we should also have a 14 because we're going from 0 to 14. There it is. Okay, so we know that random.range is working correctly. It's going to pick a random number between one of these. So now all I'm going to do is delete the update function. We only want to run this one time. Unfortunately, we only have one copy to give away, but one winner will be announced as soon as we hit start, and integer winner is equal to random.range 0 to 15, and then we'll do debug.log vrdevs, and it's going to be the index of winner who gets ProBuilder. All right, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for submitting your screenshots. Thanks for watching the tutorials building with Unity and ProBuilder. Let's see who gets to win a copy. I'm going to press play, and it says Sutton has won. I hope I announced your name correctly, but Sutton, you have won a copy of ProBuilder. Make sure to send me an email, and I'll get you the key for that. So thank you everyone for submitting, but don't worry, we got a giveaway coming right up, and this time it's for Polybrush. So there's going to be more giveaways, lots of good stuff coming up here on the channel. Thanks for watching and submitting your screenshots for the giveaway. Stay tuned for more VR videos, tutorials coming up right here. See you guys soon.